Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to be here with you guys, spend some time talking about, as you know, site feasibility, a little bit of pre-construction, those first stages of development work, which we love to do. We finally got a chance to take some time from Manuela's busy schedule. I'm Daniel Angel, managing partner of Factum Construction, and with me, Manuela Villa, our director of pre-construction and construction. We'll make sure we get the best out of this session with you guys today. We're honestly really excited to see so many of you guys joining today. For those who don't know us yet, Factum is an investor-focused residential builder based in North Atlanta, backed by Apex Investments, which is our investment arm. We handle pre-construction, site feasibility, due diligence, and what we call open book general contracting services. More lean towards investment properties, but also for homeowners. We try to stay within infill developments and with infill developers, but our range of capabilities in terms of clients or clientele is pretty broad. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. If by any chance you haven't done it yet and you wanted to look us up after today's session, our website is www.factumconstruction.com. You'll find more about our services, past projects, and any kind of information that's relevant for you guys. Happy to dive deeper into that later on. Today, we'll be walking you through our due diligence framework, the actual process that we use internally to evaluate residential lots before we commit to any project or commit any heavy resources. And we're backing it up by a couple of actual case studies that Manu and her team worked on recently. So by the end of today's session, you'll walk away or should walk away with a practical takeaway or practical takeaways you can use for your next deal. And of course, we'll be more than happy to take a look at anything that you guys are working on, but we can discuss that a little bit later also. So before we continue, just a quick reminder, as in any other webinar session, we have our Q&A box available for you guys. Feel free to drop in your questions, your comments, your feedback in there. We'll make sure we keep an eye out on that, and we'll answer the questions as they come in, or whenever we see it's a little bit more appropriate according to the presentation. So yeah, just feel free to take advantage of that Q&A. We're more than happy to take those questions as we go. I'll pause here for a second real quick. We have a comment about echo. Manu, can you hear me right? Or am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So I think if by any chance this is generalized, please feel free to comment or drop it in the question section, and then we'll just make sure we. Okay, cool. All right, so moving on. So here's the thing. The most, and this is based on our experience, but the most expensive mistakes in real estate usually, or at least in development, happen before anyone ever breaks ground, right? So if you buy a lot blind without understanding its limitations, you're pretty much setting yourself up for delays, cost you never saw coming. A few hours of real estate analysis up front can save you months and for sure a bunch of money. So one of our key points, and we can't say this enough, you know, and based on what we've done in the past, the more time you can spend up front, making sure you check all those boxes, all that Manuela is going to share with us a little bit later, the better probabilities or the more you can at least mitigate those risks that are usually present in real estate development. We'll talk about this later, but it will even get messier if there is financing involved. You want to have as much as you can figure out up front, regardless. Once that ticker starts working and going, if you have any delays, anything that you could have saved up front, you'll really regret it for sure. So on today's session or during today's session, just kind of like to go through a quick breakdown of our webinar. Here's kind of like what we will be covering today. On one side, our due diligence approach. We'll point out common red flags. We'll definitely reiterate multiple times during the session that there's no project exactly the same as another, but there's usually common red flags or at least common things that you want to look into. We'll go over the two real case studies that I mentioned earlier, and then kind of like go over when a lot is a go or when is a pass, what we usually do and how we approach that and what normally happens there. That's kind of like to cover that. And then just a quick reminder, go ahead and drop any questions, any comments. Happy to take those as we go. Some of the questions that we have here is the recording will be shared. Yes, for sure. We'll make sure everyone gets the recording at the end, or by tomorrow after edits and whatnot. But yeah. So moving on into what we call the story that each slot tells us, right? So when we look at a piece of land, we're not just looking at a lot, right? We're looking at basically its full context, whether it is its opportunities, whatever it offers, as well as the risks that it carries. Nothing gets really judged on looks. A very pretty lot from a drive-by can hide really expensive problems, as well as a rough-looking, site can turn out to be a great investment. It's always hard to tell right off the bat. So that's why we like to take a deeper dive and a really conscious approach to each analysis for whenever we have anything coming through our desk. A little bit of how that framework works. So basically, there's 5 standard steps that we take. Each one builds on the last. So basically, and in general, we work on a lot intake, then understanding the site, then analyzing any constraints, evaluating the buildable area, and then making a financial call, right? It combines technical, regulatory, environmental, financial analysis, because usually a real estate recommendation has to account for all of it, not just one piece of the puzzle. So we try to combine all these pieces. There's no perfect lot, there's no perfect project, but usually it's a combination of multiple variables that take us to that let's go moment. And also, I want to be clear, a go or a pass, it's never based on a single factor, and Manu for sure will touch on this later on. It's basically that full picture that we end up drawing up to the point where we feel comfortable of moving forward. So Manu, like step 1 through 4 from that framework is where you and your team pretty much live day to day. How about if you kind of like walk us through how this actually starts, how it goes, and how it ends?
Of course, absolutely, Daniel. And thank you so much for having me tonight. And to everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Before we get started, I would like to point out or start with a very simple premise, which is every lot or almost every lot is developable. But that doesn't necessarily mean that every site is suitable for every person or project or even investment strategy. So before you even start the process of evaluating a land for purchase, the most important thing to know is the goal. What do you expect out of this purchase? Let me put it another way. If you want to buy a land to build your forever home, then you will need to look into some characteristics and variables that will be relevant to that purpose. But if your goal is an investment, then other variables become very important. So for us and for this conversation, we're going to be discussing lot evaluation from an investment perspective. So if anybody has questions regarding like other goals and everything, we can take that offline and we can discuss. But for the purpose of this conversation, we're going to be discussing investing. So now let's get down to it. The first step when a lot enters our pipeline, the first thing we do is what we call a desktop inspection or a desktop analysis. And at this point, the most important thing is for us to become familiar with location, surroundings, and most importantly, jurisdiction. The jurisdiction part is super important because local regulations, entitlement processes, review timelines, inspections, requirements, that all varies between jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So knowing which jurisdiction you're going to be dealing with, it's very important for you to get a clearer view of what to expect. So for instance, some jurisdictions take, 10 days to issue a building permit, but others may take up to 3 months, and others we've had cases in which we've had to go through permitting for 8 months. So that's all very important. Once you start getting to know each jurisdiction, you know what to face and what to expect during the process. And that's important because for your investment, time is money. So that's a very important variable to take into consideration before you even get started. After that, we continue on our desktop analysis by getting familiar with the site itself. So Daniel, if you would move on to the next slide. At this point, we use whatever platform we have available online to analyze the site, basically lot size, the lot shape, the topo, if available. There are some jurisdictions that do have the GIS maps where you can see the topo, get the lot profiles horizontally and in length so that you can pretty much understand what the site looks like. And then you can figure out or even visualize if you're going to have streams or ditches. So figure out if the lot is in a flood zone. That's a very important thing. Also, and zoning. Confirm or double check zoning is super important because this will dictate your setbacks, which will dictate your buildable area, which we will discuss later on. So any information we can get out of from our desktop is going to be very important for us to decide whether to move forward or not. In our case, for some of our clients, they have very specific requirements, or in the case where we are evaluating land for our own projects, we have very specific requirements. And at some point, like what we see from the desktop may determine whether we move forward with the evaluation or not.
Manu, real quick, there's a quick question from the audience here.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a clear and unique answer to it, but what's your top 3 cities that you love in terms of jurisdiction? Nothing
That I
against
love or that I don't
other
love?
cities that you love.
That I love. Okay. Let's see. we've had a really good experience with Gwinnett County. We've had good experiences with Hull County. Hull County moves fast. Inspectors are great. Processes are very clear. And we've had really good experiences with Floyd County, Pickens County, and Dawson County. Those could be some good examples because they move fast. Mm-hmm.
So, thanks, Juan. Go ahead.
Okay. Also, at this point, sometimes the seller has information that is very valuable. So at this in this desktop analysis, we always ask seller for any information they may have. Sometimes they have the plat, or they even have a survey done before, or a soil test report. So any information you can get from the seller at this point is super valuable and important, because it will give you information that then you will double check on the next step, which is the site visit. So when we finish our desktop inspection, the next step is going to the actual site. For me, this is a mandatory step. I would not advise anybody to move forward with a lot purchase if they have not stepped on site. It's mandatory because you can get only this much information from the desktop. It's very different than being on site, because you can actually see things that you will never see from Street View in Google or from the survey, because being on site will give you the opportunity to visualize everything. So usually when I visit the site, as I'm approaching the lot, what I do is I take a really good look at the neighbors. Do they, especially if this is an HOA, right? Do they look alike? Can I take on some characteristics that maybe the HOA is requiring from the architectural board that we need to comply with? Are they using the same materials, the same colors? Is this something that I like for the project that I want to build? What characteristics can we see in the neighboring properties? Is this a good neighborhood? What is the demographic? What are the neighbors like? So that's a really important key point from something we're going to be discussing later on. Also, the first thing I do before even getting to the site, as I drive around, is see if there are any other projects under construction. If they are, I go to the job site and see if I can perhaps talk to the builder in case they're in there, to ask about inspectors, about their experience building in the community, about the HOA regulations, and are they strict? Are they not strict? Is there anything that I need to take into consideration? I don't only visit the site and the neighborhood from buyer's perspective, but also from a builder's perspective. What is the access like? Can I fit a truck with my trusses into this lot? Will there be enough room for me to store and stage my material? Will this be a challenge or not? All of that, not because these are items that will make me pass on this lot, but because I need to take this into consideration for my cost and my budget. Once I get to the site, I pretty much double check what I had already discovered during my desktop inspection, and double check on site whether that's accurate or not, or if there's anything else that pops out that I hadn't seen before. Usually things like, for example, trees. Things that are so simple, but and you don't usually think about it, but once you're on site and if you see big trees that could be specimen trees, and depending on the jurisdiction where you're at, you may need to involve an arborist, which is an extra cost, or they may not let you remove that tree or protect it, or pay an extra fee to remove the tree that will add to the cost. So I now know like which trees may be, let's say, an issue for development because they will add an extra cost, and I will need to take that into consideration when I'm putting like the whole budget and project together. Also, the topo. So from the GIS map, I could see the topo maybe from the survey, but being there gives you like a better sense of what the lot looks like and where you would like to locate the house per the setbacks, per the neighbor's location, and if that the topo, like being there, will let you know if you are going to be needing a retaining wall, or if this is actually a basement lot like you intended, or is it a slab lot, which is like the better configuration for the development of the house. That's something you will know when you are on site and you have all of the rest of the information that you had already collected. Things like streams, buffers, utility availability. Is this a septic lot? Is this a sewer lot? Is there power available? Is there natural gas available? Or if I want the house to have, I don't know, a gas fireplace and there's no gas available, so that means I need to get a propane tank. Like all of that information goes into my site visit report. With my team, we have put together like a lot visit report. And then while I'm on site visiting the lot, I collect all of the information as much as I can. I take pictures, I make videos, commenting on everything. And then once we're back on the computer, we go through that and we get all of the information in the report. And then we have everything we need to determine whether this lot makes sense or not. Once we're finished with that, we ask ourselves the following question: can we actually build the project that we want in this lot? Will it make sense? Now that I have topo, now that I have identified setbacks, I have identified the buildable area because I have already seen if there's a stream, if there are ditches, or if there are easements that will eat up the acreage of my lot or the buildable area. Now I know if the project that makes sense to my investment actually fits the land. So with my team, we have an architect in-house, and then we'll do what we call the site fit to see if the house footprint that we want actually fits the lot. If not, then
a quick question that we have from the audience, just kind of like kind of comes in here where you are. So what software do you use to analyze topo, zoning, flood zone, sewer, water, etc., or do you use each county's GIS?
Yeah, we use each county's GIS for that. And then when we go out to the actual visit, I double check everything. And usually there's another key point. Once you're on the site, you can really easily drive to the planning and zoning office, and then you can request information and ask additional questions regarding things that you may have not seen in the GIS maps, because sometimes the information is not as complete in some jurisdictions than another. And then there are also some things that you don't get to see on site, especially during the summertime where the trees are like, where it's very difficult sometimes to actually get into the lot. Yeah. I complement the information directly in the county or the city.
Manu, and quick question, while you're still behind the desk, so before you go on site, what's that one thing on screen that you usually say, like, I need to see this in person sooner than later?
That's a great question. And for me, I would say topo, because so again, the GIS maps, they show you topo, but sometimes they show you 10 feet contour lines rather than 2 feet contour lines, or sometimes they even show you 20 feet contour lines. So that's information that's valuable for you, but unless you visit the site and you actually look at it and visualize like the whole site, then that you'll have a clearer view of what to expect.
Right. There's more than a question, a comment, but I think it makes sense to comment here. It
Hmm.
says like when you find a lot in a 30-year-old HOA where no one has built a house, the lot's unbuildable, guaranteed. So I think it's a good
Yeah.
point. I mean, it's not always the case because sometimes you do find, lots that, people forget they own the land. I mean, we've had
Hmm.
those. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's a good starting point, I think. What do you
And
think?
if I can add something to that, it's happened to us before. Sometimes I play like, what do you call this? Um, like if there's a site that has not been developed within a community in which every lot seems to be developed, the question I ask myself is, why? What's wrong with this lot? Why hasn't anybody else built on it? And I start my evaluation based on that. And sometimes it's a no lot, and you can see it on the plat. They just won't share it with you. And unless you dig deeper, you'll find why it has not been developed. So I agree with that comment. Yeah.
Yeah, there's people that can try to sell you the detention pond
Yeah.
sometimes. So yeah, it's that's I think very valuable points. I think sometimes we play kind of like that role. It's just let's convince ourselves 100% that this is something we want to pursue, especially in those initial stages where you haven't committed to any funds or any money. It's sometimes the best investment is the one that you don't do. So, yep.
Mhm. Exactly. And then after we double check whether we can fit the project in this lot or not, or if we can actually build it, then we dig deeper into costs. As I mentioned before, construction cost is very important, and visiting the lot or evaluating the site with a builder's eye or perspective is very valuable because you know what's going to cost more depending on the characteristics that you see on the lot. But then also, if it's an HOA, then you need to find out about fees that the HOA will charge for owning a lot or a house in the community. And then also impact fees and inspection fees and building permit fees from the jurisdiction. So once we have all that, then we move on onto our next evaluation step.
Sure. And thanks for that, Manu. I think it's a really elaborate process as you know. So the next step is what we call, and I guess the question we ask ourselves is like, does it make sense financially? So like tagging along from what Manuela was saying, uh, technically every lot or almost any lot can be built. The next question is more like, does it make sense to build depending on what I want it for? So since we're talking about and discussing within the investment framework, we're going to try to focus on that. Obviously, if you're building your dream home and you're trying to stay there for the next 30 years, probably there's some things that you can oversee from the financial perspective. But when it comes to investments, if it's spec homes for sale or if it's a rental home, there's different variables that we really look into to make sure that we're on point. So once we know a home can physically fit the lot, we move to the financial side, right? So starting with market intelligence. So that includes comparable sales, days on the market, population, income trends. That applies a little bit more for whenever we're building for sale. If it's for rent, there's other variables that we take into account, but this applies for that spec kind of approach. From there, we take the initial version of the construction cost estimate that Manuela was talking about, both hard and soft costs, covering every item that we can think of. At that stage, it's pretty much high level based on historicals and updated general costs. And then we'll take into account whatever we have found, whether it is a slab, if it's a crawl space, if it's a basement, if it's sewer, if it's septic, all those variables that impact that cost, right? Then we project an exit value or what's also called like an ARV based on those comps. And then we evaluate the profit potential and the risk adjusted return, right? So I think here it's important to mention that when a client gets to us for an evaluation, usually they have something in mind. They have probably seen what the neighborhood or what the HOA has. If it's all the way from 1,500 square feet to something larger or whatnot, then usually our evaluation um, takes that into account. But then when we get to the financial part, we try to match those things. Whatever we have in mind from either that input from our client or for whatever we have in mind versus construction costs and then whatever the market tells us. If it makes sense, then we continue with that. If for whatever reason we thought we could sell a 2,500 square feet home at whatever price, and then the numbers are not making sense, I need to push that future value or that price point, and then the market's not pretty much supporting that for whatever reason, depending on where the lot is, then we need to adjust and rewind and kind of like go back and forth a little bit. I don't know, Manu, if you want to talk a little bit about that at this point, whenever it comes to, hey, that 2,500 square feet home, we can't sell it at that price. The cost is the cost because you had a basement and you thought it was going to be a slab. Like, how does that go at that point?
Yeah, so that's where it starts getting a little trickier, and you have to kind of like face this challenge with creativity. So when the construction cost does not match the price point based out of the market analysis, then you need to start making changes to the project, to the product itself. You need to start thinking, what can I do to lower cost? But still have a product that will fit this market and that will be beneficial to what we want. So you can discuss specs. If for example, if it's in an HOA, if it allows for you to modify some things from the exterior appearance of the house, or interior specs, or reduce the heated area or the total area, and or start an evaluation on how to be more efficient with construction practices and construction costs. Sometimes you can make it work. Sometimes you just need to see where you can push more in the model.
Right. Yeah. And we do have a lot of those conversations pretty much every day, or at least every week. So in essence, this is the step where we turn we can build it into it's actually worth building kind of thing. We have different variables that come into play depending on the project, as we mentioned. If there's going to be financing, how much leverage, how long we estimate designs, permitting, construction is going to take, as well as how long we think it's going to take in the market, depending on the sub-market. Especially in Atlanta, where we're so pockety, like, market performance doesn't work exactly the same everywhere. So depending on the jurisdiction, the city, the county, the street, pretty much, sometimes it goes down to the street. Everything kind of like varies. We use our kind of like in-house financial model for that, and then kind of like take our best shot at projecting those numbers. All right. So moving on, as we promised, we're going to go over a couple of actual scenarios that we recently worked on. So now let's put this framework to work. Basically, we're going to walk you through two properties, real scenarios, and you'll see, I think, the difference between what a go lot looks like versus a pass lot looks like. Once again, feel free to keep dropping those questions into the chat or the Q&A. We'll cover them as we go. I know there's a couple that we haven't taken so far. We'll get to those in a minute. So our first case is a residential lot in Gainesville, Georgia. It's inside the city limits. The client wanted to build a single family spec home here. And this is where our process kicked in. So, Manu, can you walk us through a little bit, through the process for this one?
Yes, absolutely. Once again, I want to highlight that every lot is developable. Doesn't mean that if we don't choose to move forward with a lot, doesn't mean it can't be built on. It's just that it doesn't match our objectives or goals specifically for the lot. As you can tell, we visit many lots, we evaluate many lots on a daily basis, but we decided to share this one specifically with you because if you look at it from the desktop, then some potential red flags would arise because, as you can see, the topo is challenging in some part of the land. However, as Daniel mentioned in the beginning, there are many variables that need to be taken into consideration while you analyze the potential to build in a lot, and topo is only one of them. So from our desktop inspection, we could tell that this was a great community. It was a great lot with great neighbors, pretty much what we were looking for. And we could tell that the topo was a little challenging, but we decided to move on with the rest of our steps in our evaluation, kind of like to go out there and see what it looked like and what the lot felt like. So once we're there, we could double check or confirm that it was a quiet, organized, and well-maintained community. The houses, they were all pretty much laid out the way we wanted our project to be laid out. The client had a specific area or heated area which matched the rest of the community, and the design that the client wanted also matched the rest of the community, so that was good. Access was great from obviously like a market perspective and a construction perspective. We didn't visualize any potential issue during construction with trucks, construction vans, or material staging, so that was also a good sign. We did notice some previous disturbed area on the right side of the lot, product to the build that had been going on next door. They had just recently finished building that house, and it seemed like they encroached this lot to stage some material, but then after further analysis and evaluation, we determined it was, they had staged material there, but that was not going to affect or impact our development. So that was okay. And then even though the topo was challenging at the rear of the lot, as you can see from the image we are sharing, there was a part, like an area in the lot that could be the area where we would build the house. That, of course, would need to be cross-referenced or double-checked with setbacks and easements, but that would be like a later step of our analysis. You can move on then. Yeah.
Sorry.
So after the site visit, as mentioned, we took videos, we took pictures, we filled out our form. Even the second image that you're seeing, that blue spot right there, that's me while walking the lot. And I took that screenshot to let my design team know that this is where the topo would start getting challenging. So if we could build from that point towards the road, perfect. But if we had to occupy part of the area where the topo was challenging, then that would be something else that we needed to take into consideration. However, during the site visit, we could identify that we may need a retaining wall because of the layout of the topo in this property. After that, we got with our team, we run our design, our site fit. We determined that the house, based out of the setbacks and the easements and everything else that we found there, would fit the lot within the buildable area that we had determined for our risk profile. And then we decided to move on with this project. For construction costs, we took into consideration the cost of building a retaining wall. And then once we had our engineer engaged, we confirmed that indeed a retaining wall was going to be needed, but we were okay with it because we had already set that straight in our budget, and we had the allowance to cover the cost of that retaining wall and still make a profit out of this project. So the key findings that we had is we had moderate grading required, but it was not risky. We were able to take on that risk. The house footprint successfully fits within the buildable area, and the setback requirements are maintained. So this, even though from a desktop perspective, looks like a challenging lot, from a topo perspective, when you put the rest of the variables in place, it makes the lot feasible and it makes sense for development.
Well, I'll pause there for a second. There's an interesting question here that says, what stage do you prioritize title work? I paid for surveys and done build potential financial due diligence and land checked and getting to like the go, only to run into title issues. That's a very good point. And I mean, it usually it depends on what kind of setup you have with your attorney and where you really want to like draw that line. In our case, for our projects and what we try to accomplish is run as much as we can prior to title during due diligence. So we try to get due diligence periods, wide enough to allow us for that, technical and financial feasibility, and we'll run title only when the lot is a go. You do kind of like get into that risk of title not being clean. But it's tough also to get attorneys running title consistently and getting to that point. So it's a little bit of, it depends. What we also try to do is, with our past experiences with that site visit, try to minimize the third parties at that stage and try to get to that go with as much information as possible. But still, you do have certain areas or certain topics that are not 100% answered. I don't know, Manu, if you agree with that or have anything to add.
No, I think you covered it all. Mm-hmm.
Right. So a follow-up question there is like, so closing after LDP? Definitely. Yep.
With that, I want to add something to that. Also, when it's a septic lot, don't close unless you have the soil test report that you can verify that the lot perks for septic, that the soil is suitable for septic. Otherwise, then...
And if the proper, or at least the septic tank or septic system that you can afford for that specific project, right? I don't know if you want to touch a little bit on that. Got it. Okay. Let's pause here for a second because there's a few questions kind of like related within each other that have to do with systems and whatnot. But there's a first question that's a little bit generic because it says, what system are you using? I think they're referring to like the construction system. So I don't know if you want to talk about that. But it's basically, we use Buildertrend as a project software. But then there's another one talking about what's the best app to use besides Land ID, how much profit can we make by selling entitled land to a developer? Okay, that's a heavier question. I'll take that one in a second. But I don't know if you want to touch, Manu, you already mentioned that you use GIS, like the particular jurisdiction GIS. Is there any other softwares, apps, systems that you guys are using?
Yeah, well, there are many in the market, but for us, we really, honestly, we use the GIS available maps, and then also QPublic. Through QPublic, you can access maps, and then it'll integrate with the GIS maps, and then you'll have all of the information that you need. Even so, we were recently evaluating the opportunity to start using a different software, and we tried it for a few days, And then our conclusion are like the results we got were very similar to the ones we already were getting out of GIS and all of the available data or information that is out there. So we don't, honestly, like for me, I don't see the need to use anything different, because with what we have and then with the communication with the jurisdictions, you can access all of the information that you need.
Right. And then there's another question about softwares related to market intelligence. And I can take that one. I mean, usually it's not a single software. We used to work with CoStar. Once we started getting more like into the single family space and smaller projects, CoStar was a little bit more geared towards commercial stuff. So today we use ArcGIS, Marley Intelligence for demographics, and then the MLS. The MLS actually has a lot of current data about, especially like days on market comps and getting that kind of information. So yeah, that's what we use for that. Manu, maybe close it out with the go, and then we'll continue with the next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then like pretty much like our final recommendation for this client was to go with closing this lot, because there was low development risk, stellar infrastructure in place, high desirability, positive financial outlook, and then all of the variables together made it a really good deal for this client, for this development.
Great. All right. Moving on to our past case. So our second case is a residential lot, in this case, Peachtree Corners, Georgia. On the map and in the market, this one looked very attractive. And then we can point out to that in a second. We ran it through the exact same, calling 5-step process, desk, then site. And I think you're about to see the outcome, or why the outcome turned out completely different from what you can see on that drive-by or from the desk. So Manu, yeah, if you want to dig into this one. Oops, sorry.
So same thing here. During our desktop analysis or inspection, this lot made sense. The market was very attractive, as Daniel mentioned. The neighborhood was really good. It met all of the criteria that our client had. The topo didn't look as bad as the other one in our desktop analysis. So we decided to move on with the site visit. But then, and then during our site, our desktop analysis, we identified a stream at the back of the lot, as you can see it on the image that we're sharing, but that was like very far from where we would intend to build the house. And still, we decided to go out there and take a look ourselves. While we got there, we noticed, like on the right side of the lot, we had a stormwater infrastructure system. So that means that there would be an easement in the lot. So digging deeper, we walked the lot and we identified some other things with topo. And then we went to the jurisdiction, kind of like to double check on the setback that we had to keep from the stream. And it was actually a 75 feet buffer that we had to keep, plus the easement buffer. That means our buildable area was too small. And then in addition to that, this was a septic lot. There was water running from the front of the lot towards the stream on the back. So it was a very wet lot with little buildable area, and the soils were not the best soils for septic. So pretty much because of the septic system that we had to include in this development to make it feasible and to make it code compliant, it would add up to our cost, to the construction cost, and it would make the profit or the overall cost of the project unfeasible for our clients' conditions or needs. So we decided to pass on this one and continue to look for land that would meet his criteria better. So yeah, based on what I just said, the final recommendation, it was a high development risk. Even and during our conversations with, again, neighbors and builders and even city planners, we came to the conclusion that it was not recommended to develop on this lot because of all of those restrictions. And then the numbers just wouldn't work. So that was a pass.
Thanks so much, Manu. We have a bunch of questions, and thank you so much for being so active, guys. I'll go through some of these, and then some will wait a second because I think are a little bit more relevant for later on. But one of the questions, Manu, is, and this is kind of like a tricky one. Is it acceptable for the seller to require closing before an LDP is granted? Do you have an opinion there?
Well, I think the seller can put on the table like any conditions they may have, but at the end of the day, the responsible thing to do is to get them to close after LDP. Otherwise, the risk is on you, and then you should not agree to that.
Yeah, I think like the kind of like the second question to that is more like, would it be safe to push through without the LDP? And I think not. I mean, especially when you need that, and when it's kind of like a larger project where you need that kind of approval. Um, it's best to have that clear before you move forward. There's no going back after you close. All right. Then as far as like the third parties team, so the question is, what kind of team should you pull together as far as like surveyor, engineers, etc.?
Mhm. So definitely an architect, an engineer, like a site plan engineer. Usually that same engineer will have the capacity of designing your septic in case your lot is a septic lot. Definitely a surveyor. You'll need a surveyor in your team. If it's a septic lot, and even if it's not, for structure conditions or foundations, you should have a soil test classifier, kind of like to determine what soil type you have and that you're going to be building on. And then a great builder.
And just there's a lot of people that don't realize that our process includes or within our process is kind of like the step by step, it includes architectural. Um, Obviously, we welcome clients that come with their architect or with their plans already. That's perfectly fine. In our experience, it makes sense. Whenever there's no architect still hired or engaged, just at least trying with us. We have I would say like a great plan bank already that we can use if it's an investment, usually something that we've used in the past that has worked in the past is a great option. And obviously we can design from scratch too. So I think that's another thing to point out and put up there on the table. um let's see, another quick question here. What cost okay, so normal cost to run sewer. I think it's a tricky question, but you can expand on that, Manu, because it depends if it's just a tap or if you actually need to run the line. But if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, that some people hate it when I answer this, but the answer is it depends. I'm sorry.
I'm one of those, by the way, guys.
Yeah, it depends on the characteristics of the site. So, for example, if you have to run the whole sewer line, like if there's a manhole close by, but there's no main sewer running across your lot and you want your lot to be sewer, then it's gonna depend on the length you have to extend the line to. If you have to cross the road, how many turns will it need? Because that will determine how many manholes it'll need. I can't tell like a specific number, but I can tell you this. Once we had a site that we wanted to develop, there was no sewer availability there. We did have a manhole close by. Like there was a multifamily project next door, and they had sewer, but our land that was next door did not have sewer. The line didn't go all the way there. And we wanted to subdivide it in 3 lots, but we could only subdivide in 3 lots if we run the sewer line. Otherwise, if we had to do septic, we could only do 2 lots. So we run the numbers, and it made sense to run the sewer line to build 3 homes. And the cost to run that was like $120,000. And it
It was
was
like 150 feet, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, because
So,
it looked close until we got to the numbers, but yeah, I remember that one. It
if
worked
you have
out.
a line, a sewer main in front of your lot, and you just don't have the lateral, it'll also depend. But we've had cases in which it's costed from $12,000 to $15,000 to get the sewer lateral in. And then if you already have the clean out, like the sewer lateral, then it'll be included in your plumber's quote to do the
Run the
plumbing in
line.
the house and then connect the house to the clean out. Yeah. But
Yeah,
again,
so
it depends on each lot, and yeah.
yeah, so in some, I would say just kind of like to add to that, you know, in general terms, if it's a lot where you need to run a line and it's only like one single home, it would have to be like a huge home, huge ARV for it to like make sense. If it's like a standard like fairway kind of home within the $500,000-600,000 kind of home, if it's a single one, it's tough to make it work unless the land is just like super cheap. That would be kind of like my take on that. There's another interesting question here, and I hate to have answers of depends, but what cost is reasonable for land in the Atlanta market in relation to the ARV? So, like, what percentage of the total cost? I'll take that one. It actually depends. It's a wider range than what you would want it to be, because it runs maybe from single digit, high single digit, up to maybe up to 25%, but it will depend on what kind of um, price point you're getting at. So in better submarkets, like let's say Roswell, Alpharetta, or things of that nature, you'll probably be able to pay more for that land because of that ARV. If it's in different submarkets, maybe like just growing submarkets a little bit outside of the metro area, probably you're gonna look into lower double digits or single digits. You don't want to pay more than that. That's kind of like part of that back of the envelope number that we run initially, and we go from there. Okay, perfect. Before we pause there to take a few more questions, I just wanted to show here kind of like a side by side table with the go versus the pass scenarios that we just went through. So basically going over utilities, topography, flood zones, streams, buildable area. This is all kind of like the technical stuff. And then obviously the financial and the numbers are a little bit separate, but from a technical standpoint, these are, I would say, Manu, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of like the main points that we look into to determine not necessarily it has to be perfect, as we said at the beginning, but if these variables kind of like check, make sense, don't increase your costs too much, or if they do, it still aligns with your end product and what you're looking for, and kind of like resonate with the rest of the neighborhood or the rest of the community, then it could be a go. If any of those are just huge outliers that are gonna, bring more headaches than anything else, then it'll probably be a pass. And from that standpoint, I don't know, Manu, if you have any data on that, but from every 10 analyzed lots that we have, maybe one is a go. I don't know if you have any of that roughly.
Yeah. That's for our like our investment lots. We have like really specific criteria, but like purchase criteria that we just don't want to at the risk, like face the risk that some of these lots may bring. So yeah, 10, like 2 or 3 out of 10 probably are the ones we pass. Mhm.
Mhm. Right. All right. So the the question of the night. When should you call an expert? Um, I would say honestly, like usually the sooner the better. But in general terms, if the zoning or permitting path is unclear, or if there's any environmental features on or near the lot that you want to look into, or if the buildable area is uncertain, if the site conditions feel kind of weird or complex, or if the numbers just aren't adding up, I think those are, in my opinion, kind of like key metrics or key points that would make you make that phone call. I don't wonder if you have anything else to add to that, but there's no clear moment in your process that makes like the only sense. In my opinion, the sooner the better. But if anything doesn't
Right.
look right, just
Yeah,
pick up the
the
phone.
sooner the better. Like while you're under contract before like actually closing, that would be great because you would have all of the information that you need to make a smart, informed decision. But if you already have a lot and you maybe don't have all the information or don't know whether you can build the project that you want or not, that's an expert or we could help you figure out like what to do with your lot that would make sense to what you want and what you're looking for. As I mentioned before, every lot is buildable. It's just the cost to it may or not be what you're looking for, but it all can be structured the way you need it to be.
Right. What I can tell you guys for sure is an expert evaluation today can save you months of delays and probably thousands of dollars down the road. So yeah, I would just encourage, even if it's a high level call, it doesn't matter. We're here to help. If that sounds like you, can always scan this code, on the screen, book a call. Happy to go through any specific information that you guys are going over, any specific cases, or if you have anything that you're going to be working on soon. Happy to hop on. Manu, if someone's already under contract and only now starting to ask these questions, is it too late to call us, or is there still time? Is there still something they can do?
There's
What's your take on
definitely
that?
still time. Absolutely. That's like the perfect time for us to help you evaluate your land.
It's never late unless you already closed. But even if you did, there's always something to do. So feel free to reach out. All right, so let's hop here onto the takeaways, just to make sure we stay on track there. And if there's anything else that we're not covering that you want us to touch on, we have some questions here on deck still that we will be covering in a minute. But again, as Manu mentioned, every lot has opportunities and risks, and better information always leads to better investment decisions. Sometimes, as as we kind of like briefly mentioned, you think you start analyzing a lot, thinking it's going to be for rent. It ends up being for sale. You thought it would be this big. It ends up being that big. You can find out things that are not so clear starting off that you can uncover as you get more information. All right. So, other points. So no single factor besides viability. It's data plus field experience, as Manu was mentioning, together that gives you the real answer. And then at the end of the day, the right decision is the one that protects your investment, right? So we're also investors. We also have, as I mentioned early on, have like our investment arm. We have that mindset as probably some or a lot of you guys have seen. It's kind of like the way we were built and the way we are structured as a team, always thinking, regardless of it being a property that we're building for our clients to live in, at the end of the day, it's usually one of their major investments in life. We try to make sure it's aligned with something that's adding to your either portfolio, to your uh, net worth, to your family, to your legacy. So yeah. Um, Manu, just one quick question there. If the audience remembers just one thing from today, what should that be?
Well, wow. That's a very interesting question. I would say, and I have repeated it a lot of times during this conversation, but just remember that every land is buildable. It doesn't mean that every land is suitable for everybody, every project, and every investment strategy. So your due diligence and be aware and have all of the information, as much as information as you can before you make an investment decision that you may regret or face challenges in further steps down the road.
Mhm. Cool. So sure, let's open it up here. Go ahead and drop your questions in the chat or in the Q&A. We'll be happy to take some of those. I'll be covering in order here. One of them is, do we ever analyze commercial or industrial sites? We don't actually. We specialize in residential lots and projects. So yeah, unfortunately, we don't. There's a comment here. I think it had to do with the sewer lines, where it says, I've had priced out from 20,000 to 1 million based on the project and pump tanks, etc., on sewers before. And yeah, I think it's aligned with what Manuela was saying earlier. It kind of like depends if it's running a line, if it's just tapping, if it, it's multiple things, but yeah. Um, Let me see right here. Do you do easement and legal description for a commercial, I think, a commercial lot? Um, no, so I think, for easements and legal stuff, we have our real estate attorney that we work with. That's one of those not technical items or people within your team that's important to have. Happy to share their contact. We've worked with him for almost 10 years now, and it's been great. Um, do you help clients source off market or on market development sites, or is the some of the clients, or is it the exception that clients bring you properties? Also, once a site is identified, do you assist with the feasibility study? Yeah, yes to all. So within our team, and it kind of like links to our investment arm. We can there's multiple ways we can help there. First, if it's, hey, I'm interested in getting into the investment world. I don't know where to start. I need a lot. We have some projects in our pipeline that sometimes we don't have enough bandwidth to take on. Happy to share those. Usually those come already pretty much designed, structured, and whatnot. It's pretty much a plug and play. Or if it's sometimes clients are more specific about where they want to invest, where they want the lot to be, and we can help with our acquisitions team to hop into those, whether it is on market or off market, to help you. And then the feasibility analysis, for sure, that's where pretty much one of those team starts. If there's a lot that you're looking at, that you have under contract, that you're interested, we can start with that feasibility test, so to speak. It's usually a 5 to 10 day process. Manu, I don't know if you want to talk about that, but it's basically um, there's obviously a deliverable, a report at the end, And then whatever that costs, it rolls into the next phases of the project if it continues within our scope. And we can share some samples of those reports, no problem. I'm looking for land to build. Where are you guys looking to find land at this point? That's a great question. So for our clients, we look wherever they're interested. If there's input required from our side, we do have a buy box. Happy to, hop on a call and be a little bit more specific of where we're seeing opportunities. But it's usually, Northeast, Northwest Atlanta. We try to stay outside the perimeter. But that's kind of like personal reason. Doesn't mean that we can't cover inside the perimeter. Doesn't mean that we can't cover other jurisdictions. But that's usually kind of like what we're covering. Um, Here's another question. I've seen land for Alpharetta for 800 a lot and sale price of 2.4, which I still don't know how they make profit. Um, yeah, I mean that's a great point. The And then again, it comes down to the specific project. Happy to run those numbers. Sometimes it makes sense. And when you get to that point, it depends on the product and how extensive your finishes need to be and where your hard costs, soft costs land. I wouldn't necessarily say the 800 versus 2.4 and the price is not feasible. It could work, but it's a matter of running those numbers. Manu, do you have anything to add to that? You're muted. You're good.
Sorry. No, I think you covered it all.
Got it. Okay, this is a great question. Talking about financing, and so it says, can you touch on how we go about financing your projects? Again, it depends on the client. Some clients prefer to go cash or low leverage. We use both local lenders and outside lenders. It depends on the experience, on the requirements and whatnot. Happy to share contacts from our network. We've used and we keep using lenders for our own portfolio. For the most part, for ground up construction, they will require some kind of information upfront from who you're using as a general contractor. But yeah, I mean, we have quite a few partnerships out there that we can share and get you guys warm introductions for sure. Another question is about how and what do we charge? That's a great point. We work on a cost plus structure. So the way we do it is whatever the hard cost of the project is, we charge 10% of that as our construction management fee. It's open book. We just go cost sometimes, and I'll kind of like go ahead from that question because usually we have a follow-up question about like why not GMP or guaranteed maximum price. And actually we prefer the cost plus because you know exactly what's the cost of the project. There's no hidden numbers or upcharges into those numbers. And the way we mitigate that, and Manu, I know you can talk about this a little bit deeper, is before we break ground, we try to be at least 60, 70%, in some cases, I think even more contracted. So we won't break ground until we have like a solid, very tight budget. And we have that conversation with clients a lot. Sometimes it's like, no, let's get it started. We'll figure things out as we go. And we're very much focused on we will only start once we have an approved budget. That way everyone knows where we're headed and then contracted. So contracts with subs on hand, at least 60, 70%. Manu, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but that's kind of like what I have.
Yeah, that's actually a strategy that has worked very well for us, for our clients, and for our personal projects. While we go through permitting, we already have final plans or like the closest version to final plans because, sometimes the jurisdiction will make comments and things you need to change. But with those set of plans, we start bidding and we start getting real quotes and estimates, and then we start approving and getting our contracts closed. So by the time we break ground, most of the project is already contracted with the different vendors and subcontractors, and we already know how much it's gonna cost. Some things we need to wait until it's actually built because some measurements will need to be taken on site to finalize some quotes. But other than that, we like to start off a very solid budget to avoid any surprises down the road.
Yep. There's another interesting question here. So about they're asking us if we're offering consulting services, and I think it's worth explaining a little bit about how our process works. We pretty much break it down into two phases. So it's the pre-construction phase where we have site feasibility, market analysis, and kind of like that pre-construction phase, including coordination of those third-party fellows that participate in a project, all the way to getting a solid budget. That's our pre-construction phase. Happy to participate in that process up to that point. Obviously, we love to work all the way through construction execution. But if any client gets up to the point where they have a budget, where they have that pre-con kind of like solid, and they want to work, either do it on their own or hire a different general contractor for it, uh, it's no problem. So in essence, not that we're offering only consultation, but we do like to have kind of like that holistic approach, helping clients get from A to Z, and help them throughout the way. Okay, if we work with you and we have a lot we are evaluating, will y'all basically help us understand what plan we should build in it as well? Manu, you can take this one if you'd like, but in essence, yes. Um, but go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can help you figure out the characteristics of your lot, what can be built there. And if you have something in mind, we can help you kind of like structure the whole thing to see if it's feasible, or we can share with you the different floor plans that we've used. And if there's anything that you like that would fit your lot, we can also work on that. Absolutely.
Yep, definitely. Do we go to Henry County? Yes, and we haven't. I don't know if we recently have done anything in Henry County. I don't think so, but we're in Fairburn. We've seen stuff in Peachtree City, so yeah, we're okay with that. Do you provide cost of construction and budgeting services? Yeah, I think we already covered that, but yeah, it's kind of like part of that process that we went through. Happy to hop on calls and kind of like go into more details. I think our website's pretty explicit on those items. So yeah, you can always visit there or reach out at any point. We can go over it. And the other one was if we offer manage construction management and pre-development consulting. Yes, covered that. So happy to uh, elaborate on that and talk about it in more detail. Have you had land that the only feasible option was rezoning? Have we had any of those recently, Manu?
Not recently, no. We've in the past, yes, and we have evaluated, but lately we've been focused on like rezoning takes a while. So sometimes when we run the numbers and we include the time that rezoning takes, It may not be within our investment criteria, but we've done it in the past, and yeah, it's a possibility.
Yeah, the way I would say it is maybe our equity is not that patient, so we try to hop on deals that are a little bit more like quicker. If you have patient capital, or if you have the time to wait for what the rezoning, entitlement, and whatnot takes, I think it's a great option, and it's something we can look into definitely. Um, I think I don't know if anybody has any other questions. Okay, there's one here. How much are you guys building price per square foot in Metro Atlanta on your personal builds, hard plus soft? I think that's a tough one. Manuel, I don't know if you want to take a stab at that, because it usually, at least from what I've seen, I usually see more like the model and the financial, kind of like the how it stacks up, and it really depends on the size of the project and the size of or the property itself. But I don't know if you want to throw out there like a range of what you're seeing lately. And
Yeah.
I think, assuming you know better conditions, because there's a lot of maybes.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of maybes, and if we were to add the soft costs, that's also depending on the jurisdiction because of the impact fees, or if there's an HOA, or the cost of the land. But I would say like our latest projects would have been between the range of 230 and 250 probably per square feet.
But that's including land, no?
Including land.
Yeah, no. So if you take hard and soft,
Oh,
or even
okay.
like break it down, like hard first, and then soft is a little bit iffy. So maybe just give a little bit of an idea of hard cost.
Hard cost probably 130-ish probably.
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
an average.
Yeah, and then obviously if the property's smaller, if it has a lot of or I guess like the proportion of heated versus built area, that takes into account. If it's a basement, takes into account. If it's a septic, also. So there's different variables. Happy to run some of those numbers. Usually in our feasibility phase, which is pretty early on, we're able to get an idea. I would say like a pretty solid idea of where we can land on that. So in a 10 to 15 day mark of us like working and massaging the information, we can get some of that information pretty early.
That's right.
Perfect. Anyone else has any other questions? We went a little bit over time, but honestly, we really appreciate the questions, the comments, the participation. Thank you so much for joining us.
There are a couple
And
more questions.
yeah, I think there was another question here. Sorry, I had scrolled down. My bad. So one is like how to read topography. I don't know, Manu, do you want to? I don't know if the question is like literally how to help them read it, or if like a system we use for topography. Maybe if you can touch on both.
I think they mean like how to, like, if you have the contour lines, how do you know how to read topography? I think that's
Mhm.
what the question was. And this is very hard to explain without an image on the screen for me, but
Straight back.
if you go back to the go lot, right
Here or here?
here, right there. So if you see the yellow lines, there's one on the right side of the lot, that like a thick yellow line that says 1200. So that's one contour line. That's the elevation of that contour line on the lot. And then the next you see, it's 1180, I think.
80. Yep.
So that means based on that, lot is going down that way. And then another important thing to take into consideration, like the closer the yellow lines are, the contour lines are, it means the steeper the topo is, because the changes of elevation are very close to each other. But the more separate the yellow lines are, like pretty much like on the front of the lot, they are more separate than on the back. That means the land is a little flatter on that area, because the changes in elevation are more separate to one from another. And then you can see the explanation on the profile on the left. As you can see, at first, the topo goes a little bit up, then it stays like a little flat, and then it drops. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Hopefully it does. But yeah, in general terms, and it's the closer the lines are, the more steepness there's going to be. The further apart, the flatter the land's going to be. It takes a little bit to get a hang of it, but yeah, we usually have to take this lesson often from Manuela.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
so
another question there, Daniel. How much costs to do first due diligence of a land?
I didn't see that one. So what was that again?
How much does it cost to do the first due diligence of a land?
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So if it's only the feasibility report, it's $500. Once you get that feasibility, you kind of like have an idea where things are going. If our clients have their own kind of like market intel, that's it. If they want us to give our opinion on market intel, it's $300 additional. So, 800 total. Now, if at that point the project is a go, or if it's a go, then the architectural portion kicks in, whether they want to do it with us or not. If they want to do it with us, then we continue adding to kind of like that ladder, so to speak, up to the full pre-construction package is $7,500, and that takes them to, value engineering, budget in hand, total kind of like designs and feasibility, obviously, and whatnot. So if the great thing about our process is clients start paying what they need, and the next phase includes the additional cost rolls in, or the previous payment rolls into the next cost, and so forth. That way clients are not kind of like double dipping. We understand how it goes when we need to go out of pocket to get to that pre-construction phase. So that's kind of like how we put it together. I didn't see that question, so I don't know if you're getting some on your side. There's another question here. The lenders you work with, will they take into account your experience if this is our first build? It depends. In some cases, they do, and we can talk about that offline. I didn't see the name there, but we'll definitely make sure we reach out to you and we can talk about that offline, definitely. I think there's another question about the 230, including land. I think it had to do with your previous comment, Manu. And yes, in that case, I think it's iffy when you include land, because then if we go back to the example of the $800,000 in Alpharetta, it kind of like deviates the whole thing. But yeah, we can definitely talk about that offline also. Does entitling a raw lot have an impact on the value? Do you help with valuing it before and after? Yes, definitely. I think that touches on the other question we had earlier about, if it made sense to rezone. So it has to do kind of like, it's similar. The process is similar: rezoning, entitling, getting an LDP or a project, I guess like initial phase approved. Obviously, that adds value to the land, and happy to look into those specific projects individually. Yes, for sure. All right. I think we're approaching the end. Once again, thank you so much for staying longer. I know the original intention was for it to be around an hour, but thank you so much for joining. Thanks so much for sticking around. We hope this gives you a clear picture of how due diligence protects your investment and kind of like that step by step process. Manu, I don't know if you have anything else to add to the folks that are here with us today.
No, I guess like thank you for staying and for hearing us out. And as you can tell, we're very passionate about this topic, so we could go on and on and on. But this is very interesting, an interesting thing to discuss, to talk about. Every land is different, every project has its own characteristics, and that's what we love to do. So if you don't hesitate to reach out, if you have any questions, if you would like to discuss further, or if you want to kind of just talk about the topic, we'll be very happy to get to know you all. And yeah, thanks so much
Yeah,
for
for everyone.
having us, and have a good night.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for the shout outs there. We saw some familiar names and happy to have you guys around. Take care. Have a great night. See you soon.